Did I turn myself? Good afternoon, all. Thank you all for attending this special meeting of the Cowra Shire Council, extraordinary council meeting on Monday, 11th of December. I have to read these. Thank you for coming. Lots of people that we've already seen before. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, Cowra Council is recording this meeting and will upload the recording to Council's website. By speaking at this meeting, you agree to being recorded and having that recording published in the public domain. Please ensure that when you speak at council meetings, you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Cowra Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Wiradjuri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The attendance and apologies. We have no applications for leave of absence by councillors. Everyone is in attendance. We have no apologies from directors or staff. Thank you. Disclosure of interest. Councillors and staff, please indicate in relation to any interest you need to declare, what report item you're declaring an interest in, whether the interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and what's the nature of the interest. Have we any declarations of interest? Thank you. Now we have no presentations from staff, but we have 4 members of the public who have registered with the General Manager's Office to speak on an item in the agenda. Karen Reid, Helen Troy, Lorraine Wales and Craig Wallace, who will speak to item 2.1, development application number 37/2022, Tokyo Terrace, 7 detached dwellings and 8 lot community subdivision. I will call each of the speakers by name and I ask that you introduce yourself and allow time for any councillor or member of staff, if they have declared an interest on the item, to manage that conflict, which may include them leaving the room for your presentation. Each speaker will have a maximum of 5 minutes. So with that, I will open public forum and ask Karen Reid to step forward, please.
Okay, my name is Karen Reid and I'm speaking on behalf of DA 37/2022. I'd like to start by reading a quote from the New South Wales Office of Local Government webpage. As a councillor, you are expected to represent the views of the community while making decisions in their interests, demonstrate conduct that the community expects and deserves, and plan the overseeing and running of a significant and complex business. This means that your decision tonight should not be one made on your personal beliefs or opinions, but one that is based on the best interests of the residents of Cowra, in particular those in Valley View Estate. It is important that you are clear on what we are requesting of you, so I will list our requests here. 1, we ask that you reject DA 37/2022. 2, we request that Council takes immediate action, enacting all necessary steps to ensure the DCP is updated to align with the design guidelines marketed to us when we purchased our properties in Valley View Estate. DA 37/2022 must not be approved, not even with conditions. If you as a councillor vote to approve this DA, you are indicating that you believe it is an appropriate development for Tokyo Terrace when it is clearly not. And many of you agreed with us at the on-site meeting on Thursday the 7th of December. DA 37/2022, even with the list of conditions included by Council for approval, does not fit with the current streetscape and design guidelines of the estate. Residents have made it clear on many occasions through multiple forums since DA 109/2019 first appeared that this large-scale development is not suitable for Valley View Estate under the design guidelines and consideration of the existing homes. As residents of Valley View Estate, my family and I respectfully ask that Mr. Kilsey hears us, acknowledges the validity of our objections and finds another location to build these units. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. So Helen Troy.
My name is Helen Troy and I'm representing myself and my husband Vernon. First of all, that photo is so old to the general public, does not have an outline of where those buildings are going to be. I would have liked to have seen an update of all the extra homes that are there. That's a very prestigious, I'd say it was the most prestigious development in Cowra, and to allow those units to go ahead, if there is no covenant stopping units, how many other blocks will become blocks of units? I think it's such a shame. It's such a lovely area, and as I said in my letter earlier to the council, I can just imagine 14 bins down on that road, which is too narrow for traffic anyway. You can't park and pass. So I just don't agree with the proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Now we have Lorraine Wales.
Good evening, Councillor. I just wanted to say that I want to express my objection to the development of DA 37/2022 on the grounds that it doesn't meet the streetscape whatsoever, and the 7 dwellings in one lot is not suitable for the rest of the street. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. And Craig Wallace.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak about DA 37/2022 as I emailed through to the councillors today. I didn't want to prolong the time so the councillors have their due time to discuss this critical matter. The 2 key areas that I believe the DA should be rejected on is the setbacks that are not aligned with the streetscape and the guidelines that we were given, the existing buildings in the area, and the utilities and services that have been designed and installed there by the council were not designed for this amount of homes. The services such as the authorities, ambulance, fire brigade, and rubbish collection, meter reading, as I referred to here, are concerned about the facilities and the infrastructure in that area, that estate not being able to handle the amount of dwellings. You get something like the weekend we've just had with a heat wave, and the electricity not being up to it is two. I know there's many other reasons that the public have spoken about, but they're 2 key areas that we would ask the councillors to act and vote responsibly on and reject this DA. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? They've been so brief tonight that we do have a little bit of time if there is anyone else who would like to give some more information or new information. I know we've all heard it before. So if there's anyone who would like to give new information, then come to the lectern. If that's the case, then we'll move on. So, yes. So if you could give your name. Okay, thanks, William.
Well, I've just moved to Cowra. We've just moved here and we're renting a house in Banksia Close until ours is built in number 3, Tokyo Terrace. And I just love the marketing and the advertising that went out when that area was opened up. And I think it's like a dress circle for that whole area and indeed for Cowra. And we were looking forward to building in accord with that. But I was very dismayed to see that 7 units are going to be built on one of those blocks of land. And it's just not in keeping with what we were offered. It's going to spoil that whole area. And I just hope the council listens to what's been said tonight and what we've written in and rejects that DA. I'm sorry, it's not very technical. It's just a matter of feeling and emotion. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you very much, William. So we'll move on. We have some alterations to the development application, the amended report, and I'll ask the planning director to explain some of those changes. If everyone could open their pink folders with the changes in them, they're highlighted in yellow.
Just a question, has anyone else seen these
No, but
additions?
they're only slight amendments, so I think Larissa can explain what they are and people want to understand.
I know what they are, but other
I'm-
people,
Anyway, what I'm saying is Larissa will explain them. If they don't understand, we can have questions. We can actually discuss that. But I think they're pretty simple. I think she'll be able to explain where they are. People know the DA, have seen it before. So let's let Larissa explain it and then we'll see if it's complicated and too complicated. No, sorry, we can't take any questions from the floor. What we will do is just, Larissa will just, they're very minor amendments. Most of them are very small amendments. I'm sure you will understand. Let Larissa explain it and then if we have any complications, we'll make that clear. Larissa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 8 of the council report, where we've added condition number 11A, requiring that prior to the release of the post-consent certificate, essentially your construction certificate, that the applicant is required to provide the principal certifying authority with a detailed and updated genuine estimate of the completed costs associated with the construction, preparation and fit out of the buildings and or construction costs of carrying out the work as it applies to the application. Additionally to this, we have asked that such report be provided by an independent quantity surveyor that would accurately reflect the costs of the building work. So we have added that in following our discussions last week. The other changes reflect the number of actual provided car parking spots on the site. Council had included the additional 2 car parking spaces at the front of dwellings number 1 and 7, because on the plans they showed a vehicle being there, so we had included those in our calculations, giving us a calculation of 18 car parking spaces on the site, including the garages. The cars were actually only put on there to show that a car would fit on that driveway section, so we have adjusted the report and reduced it down to 16. Those are the only changes, and those are reflected in this report.
So as you can see, they're not complicated, and the one about the evaluation was from discussions with the residents up there last week. So that's and the other one was a clarification of a site plan. So I think we'll move
Just
on.
a question, please.
Yes, Councillor Wright.
Page 15, the change there, the proposal includes 4 by visitor car post spaces located along the common driveway area, in addition to the 2 car spaces provided for dwellings 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So are those 4 car parks included in the 16, or should it be 20?
Through the chair, they are included in the 16.
Those later clarifications are just adjustments to the original changes to the car parking spaces. They actually just refer to the original, the first one. It just the multiplying effect is in.
So therefore, the
affecting
second car spaces on those houses, on those dwellings notified, will be parking on the driveway, on the entrance driveway.
We have no idea where they'll be parking, but they're the car parking spaces provided in the site plan. So if you'd like to leave it there, that would be great. Let's get on with what we're doing. So we're going to actually consider the development application number 37, 2022. And if we would like to, we have a recommendation for adoption. And Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have circulated to councillors a motion I would like to move as an amendment to the application. Amendment to the motion.
You're actually going to move this motion instead of the recommendation?
Yes.
You're going to move this motion instead of the recommendation?
Correct.
Excellent. Would you like to read it out?
Yes. Do I need a seconder before
You
I
do need a
read it?
seconder.
Not till it's
Not
read
till it's
out?
read out?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So my proposed motion is that council refuses development application 37/2022, lot 7, DP 1250412, 13 Tokyo Terrace for the following reasons. 1, the development is not consistent with the existing character of the Valley View estate. 2, the development is not consistent with the desired future character of the estate. 3, the development should be considered as a greenfield residential application as per the definition in Part D2 of the DCP. The development does not comply with the front setback requirements in Part E.2.11.1 of the DCP. Number 5, the development is inconsistent with the requirements for water connections in Part D.2.8.E and D.8 of the DCP. The development has not provided adequate information on the street sweep of visitor parking. 7, the application would result in overdevelopment to 20 lots on the Tokyo Terrace east/west section and would not be suitable for the road hierarchy articulated in Part D.2.6 of our DCP. Number 8, the applicant is required to provide a draft management statement Part D.8.1.B of the DCP, which they have not done and have told us they do not see as their responsibility. Part 9, there is no adequate visibility of vehicles leaving the main car park of dwelling 4 and 5 due to the retaining walls adjacent with the community, that should say community land instead of wall.
Thank you. I need a seconder. Somebody going to second that? Councillor Downey. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This DA is in front of Council for 3 reasons. Firstly, as evident by the people present in the chamber today, there has been significant community objection to this DA. Secondly, the applicant is asking for a variation on the DCP guidelines in relation to Part E.2.6 of the CDCP in relation to cuts and fills controls. Thirdly, the applicant is asking for the council's consent to have a community title. I have a number of objections to this application and find that it is inconsistent with our DCP and public interest. Firstly, and most prominently, the setbacks articulated in this application are not compliant. In 2021, Cowra Shire Council adopted an updated CDCP which amended the front setback requirements for new dwellings. Previously, there was a standard setback of 6 metres for all dwellings. In 2021, Council adopted changes to this, which provided 4 other scenarios which would determine the setbacks for dwellings. This is based on the dwellings that face the same street of the adjacent buildings. The assessment provided to us today applies scenario 1, which would be to have a standard 6 metre setback. However, as there is an approved DA at 9 Tokyo Terrace and an existing building at 15 Tokyo Terrace, both within 40 metres of the proposed DA, who have a setback of 12.5 to 14.5 metres, the appropriate application would be the setback of scenario 2, 3 or 5, which would either be to align themselves to one of the two or to, in regards to scenario 2, to choose one of the two, to choose an average of one of the two, or to have a section where perhaps the front home is in line with the application to the right and the other to the left. Sorry, that doesn't quite make sense, but either side aligning to the setback of either side. Due to this, this shows that this DA is not compliant with the streetscape developed and should be rejected on those grounds alone. However, I have a number of other items for which I would encourage Council to consider rejection of this. As presented by the applicant, and the assessment in front of us has conducted an assessment based on Part D3 of our CDCP, infill residential subdivision, which is incorrect. The Valley View Estate subdivision was created only a few years ago, and buyers who purchased their lot at auction have yet to build on their lots. Additionally, Stage 2 of Valley View subdivision has not taken place. In Part D.2 of our DCP, a greenfield residential subdivision is defined as a subdivision where the ultimate lot yield of all stages will be more than 25 lots, and where the urban pattern, street and open space network, neighbourhood structure, for example, is not yet determined by the existing development and street or neighbourhood development pattern. I also believe that Council, for a start, as I mentioned, part of the reason that this is coming to us is because we are required to provide consent for the creation of a community title. I do not believe that that is the right decision for Cowra or for the Valley View Estate for 2 reasons. Firstly, the applicant has not followed the requirement to provide a draft of the management statement as required in Part D.8.1.b of our DCP, and when requested to do so, they made it clear that they did not believe that that was their responsibility. Secondly, the creation of a community title on this lot would alter the amount of lots in the Tokyo Terrace area to greater than 15 lots. The reason why this is significant is because when roads are developed and chosen for their width, this is based on the amount of lots in the relevant area. Because there are 14 lots in Tokyo Terrace East-West, the road was developed in line with access place, less than 15 lots. The acceptance of this community title would add 6 lots to this area, bringing the total up to 20 lots. The requirements for this road would, for a road for this amount of lots, would be to increase the existing road by 2 metres for the road reserve and 3 metres for the road carriageway, 5 metres in total. As I stated earlier, this is a greenfield subdivision. This is not somewhere that has been developed for 20, 50 years where we are trying to infill or where we are infilling based on utilities that have been provided. This is an area that was very recently created as a subdivision that is not complete. Valley View Estate Stage 2 has not been complete, and there are people who purchased their lots at auction at the beginning of the subdivision who have not yet built their lots. Further to this, as a result of this, Council's road network is not capable to support the increased traffic generated from this development. As per Part D, point 2.5.f of the DCP, quote, the street network should enable connections to be made to adjacent future urban areas. The location of these connections should consider the future overall network requirements of the district. Therefore, when the decision was made to have the road on Tokyo Terrace east-west as an access place for under 15 lots, Council made the decision that there would not be more than 15 lots in this area. Now, someone may say when stage 2 is put in place, Tokyo Terrace will become longer, and as a result, there will be more lots on Tokyo Terrace. However, the planning assessment of this area is that Tokyo East-West and Tokyo South, I think is the right terminology, are separate in this planning discussion, which is evident by the planned wider road for Tokyo Terrace South. In addition, and unfortunately I haven't put this in here, so we will deal with that later, or perhaps I'll add it in. The minimum site frontage for lots in this area is 18 metres. The individual lots of 1 and 7, which are those that front Tokyo Terrace, do not meet this requirement. In combination, they meet this requirement, which is what is articulated in our recommendation. However, on measurement, each are around 14 to 16 metres, which is less than the minimum site frontage. As these are individual lots and not multi-dwelling housing, they should be held to the standard of other lots. In relation to utility provision, the water utility provided in this application is inconsistent with our DCP. The application will provide a master water meter connected to the Shire's water, and from there provide slave meters, not my words, these are apparently the words that we use, a slave meter to the individual lots. As per Part D.2.8.e, quote, all new residential allotments, including Torrens title, strata title and community title, should be provided with a separate and distinct connection to the Council's reticulated water and sewerage supply system. This is referenced again in Part D.8, which specifies the specific requirements for strata and community title position. Now, the key words in that being separate and distinct. While they are allowed their slave connection from the master, that is not a separate and distinct connection to Council's reticulated water and sewerage supply system. The applicant has requested a variation to the cut and fill controls articulated in E.2.6, where they are required to provide Council for consideration a cut and fill plan, which has not been provided. The retaining walls are not solely on the boundary of the site, affecting the neighbours, but they are also visible from the community lot, which would create a very different streetscape, for example, on the community title than has been set up. Car parking design. Part M.2.3.B requires the visitor car parks able to be manoeuvred in and out in no more than 2 positions. We have been provided swept paths for the car parks of those allocated to the houses, but we have not been provided swept paths for the visitor car parks as required. As we have not been provided this, we are required to make the assessment on our own. Personally, I think that the majority of the visitor car parks would struggle, though I admit I am not the best car parker and have a car far too large for housing. But the visitor car park located at the front of dwelling 6 in no way would be compliant with the two-step manoeuvring. I also believe that the visibility of vehicles leaving dwelling 4 and 5, due to the retaining walls adjacent with the community lot, would be inconsistent as per M.2.1.c of the plan. And finally, community interest. As I said, it is very clear from the people in the room, the emails we have received, the conversations we have had with the community, that this development application does not meet community interest. The locality of the Valley View estate currently has an average lot size of around 1,000 metres squared. The smallest lot is 806 metres squared, which is more than double the size of the largest lot on this proposed DA. The objectives of Zone R1, General Residential, include 7 objectives, which include, quote, to provide for a variety of housing types and densities, and quote, to provide attractive, affordable, well-located and market-responsive residential land. I was not a councillor at the time of the creation of the Valley View estate, but from reviewing minutes at the time and reviewing media coverage and the draft guidelines provided, it is my understanding that the large lots were created at Valley View estate due to market demand for large individual dwelling lots. These lots sold well at auction, which is evidence that council had correctly assessed the market desires for this area. R1 seeks to have a diversity of housing, which does not mean that density shouldn't occur in all parts of the zone, but it does not mean that every part of R1 needs to be high density. I would like to thank everyone for genuinely considering and engaging in this, and I would like to encourage my councillors to approach this with an element of critical thinking and consider that I have now provided a number of items where this is inconsistent with the DCP. And if it is your belief that you need to make decisions solely on planning purposes, that you consider that this is not consistent with the DCP, which is our planning policies, and we need to uphold that DCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Downey.
I'd just like to start by congratulating Councillor Watt for the immense amount of work that she has put in to her moving that motion. I actually I Googled what a councillor is supposed to do as well, Karen, so we didn't take notes. And that was exactly what it said, that you're expected to represent the views of the community while making decisions in their interests, demonstrate conduct that the community expects and deserves, plan and oversee the running of a significant and complex business. So I'd hope that we're all in this room and here to do the best we can. But there is no doubt that Cowra Council has missed opportunities to rectify problems in the past that have led us here today. The revised CDCP was adopted in 2021 and the guidelines were not incorporated, even astonishingly after this case went to the Land and Environment Court and advice was received in 2020 to amend the guidelines if any blocks were unsold. It is disappointing, but we're all human and we just need to acknowledge that this is a mess up, try to rectify it, and when we know better, we should do better. I suggest an urgent amendment of the planning documents for Valley View Estate be considered before the formal review of the plan occurs in its entirety. I feel that council must do business in good faith and will therefore not support the DA. I knowingly accept that there will be adverse consequences that have been clearly alluded to in this chamber following this decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone speak against the motion? Councillor Smith.
Against the motion, not because I don't have sympathy with the community that lives in Tokyo Terrace and surrounds. I speak because, despite Councillor Watt's very long, complex and researched explanation for her motion, I don't believe that everything that she said was correct, and I don't intend to go through it point by point. I'll mention, for example, point 8, which says the applicant is required to provide a plan of management. That is not the case, I believe. I think the wording is should provide. There are a number of other issues there. I will say I do not like the development, but personal likes and dislikes should not have any place in considering the motion in this chamber. I do regret the fact that after the first development application with regard to 13 Tokyo Terrace was rejected by us and subsequently by the Land and Environment Court on a number of technicalities which have been rectified in this current motion, I, on council, did not take steps to ensure that, as far as we could ensure, the DCP and the LEP were amended. And I have to say that we can only put such requests for amendment to the state government, and the ultimate decision is theirs. I'm not 100% sure, or anywhere near that that decision would be in our favour. Nevertheless, I do believe that as soon as possible, as Councillor Downing said, we need to take what steps we can to ensure that this sort of thing is not repeated. Councillor Watt said that there are a number of things that are inconsistent with the DCP. And that is true. There are minor inconsistencies. Every one of us in this chamber on multiple occasions has voted in favour of development applications that have inconsistencies with the DCP. The final thing that I will say is that I agree with all those who have spoken and written behind us that we should do our best to make decisions in the best interests of the community. I acknowledge that the community that is most vitally concerned with this particular DA is the community who have been notified as neighbours and who live in the area. However, I believe that there is a wider community and that we need also to take those interests into consideration. I am 100% sure that should we, as seems likely, reject this DA, then we will go to the Land and Environment Court, where the ruling will be, for a number of reasons, against us. I don't believe it's in the wider community's interest, despite the fact that it may give my fellow councillors and those who live near there some feeling of satisfaction and justification. I don't believe that it is in the wider community's interests to spend a lot of money fighting something that I think we will lose. The very final thing I would say is that I do accept and thank for the residents for their concerns and their continually showing up and showing that they have that vested interest. However, and I hate to end on a down note, I reject entirely an email which arrived today for councillors, which accused council of dishonesty and corruption. I believe that is untrue, unfair and defamatory, did not help the case of the person who put it to us. However, that is again not a consideration in my decision.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Gikith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd firstly like to thank Mr. Kilsey for his patience and professionalism in awaiting Council's determination. In spite of the lengthy times necessary for us to thoroughly consider his DA, he's remained respectful in his approach, and I sincerely appreciate his behaviour. I must also thank our directors for their patience with me and the willingness to go that extra step to ensure that I have a comprehensive understanding of all the implications of the development. And last but definitely not least, I'd like to acknowledge the community members here of Valley View Estate. They have provided their submissions with civility in their endeavours to ensure that I can fully appreciate their concerns. After exhaustive consultation and investigation, I'm left without doubt that Mr. Kilsey's proposed development complies with all the objectively measurable controls and conditions. Every objective measure, whether it be setback, road width, lot size, or water meters, is unarguably met, irrespective of whether I consider some of these measurements to be somewhat impractical. However, my role as a councillor is to advocate for our community, whether it be the community of Valley View Estate or the wider community of the Cowra Shire, and where they feel they've been done a disservice, look beyond the facts and figures and consider the human impact. I would like to bring your attention specifically to the streetscape of Tokyo Terrace and its immediate surrounds. There's no doubt that some streetscape elements are physically measurable. These are the rules by which we must all abide, unless there's been a specially granted variation. But streetscape in itself is an inherently human perception. Googling the definition of a good streetscape, it won't throw at you a bunch of facts and figures. Instead, it provides descriptions such as the ability to feel comfortable and belong to the environment, its visual effect, an appearance conducive to positive livability, the design quality, elements that help make a better environment, the natural built fabric of the street that adds to the experiential quality of the street. Madam Mayor, I find that the streetscape is a considerably subjective notion, that it's unable to be defined in its entirety by facts and figures. A good streetscape is determined by the feelings of those who experience the community atmosphere. I propose that the DA 37/2022 is not in keeping only with section E 2.8A of the CDCP 2021 Streetscape Controls. As this reads, Streetscape is about ensuring there is a consistency in build and landscape form along streets and private sites. The following controls apply to a new medium density housing. Part A, developments in existing urban areas must be consistent with the scale and character of adjoining dwellings and surrounding environment. And in that point in itself, I find that hard to be overly objective, and I find that to be more of a subjective character. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. Anyone else speaking against the motion?
Sorry, just to be clear.
No, I need someone to speak against the
was
motion.
was that speaking for or against?
Yes, that's for the motion.
For
She was speaking for
the motion I passed?
Yes,
I
she was
passed,
speaking for the motion. Now I need someone against the motion. Are you going to speak against Erin's motion?
No, for that motion, yeah.
No, I need
yeah,
somebody
right,
to speak against the motion, Councillor Watt. Right? I need someone to speak against the motion. Is anyone speaking
Point of
against
order,
the motion?
you can take another speaker for the motion, but that will close the debate because you've had two in a row.
How about we just wait till I direct on that? We need someone to speak against the motion to continue the debate. Is there anyone going to speak against the motion? Councillor West.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Only briefly, I feel a bit like Switzerland because I understand that the concern of my colleagues, and if this is the direction my colleagues want to go, then I'm quite happy to understand that. But I do want to make some comments on the way through. Firstly, this DA has been very well assessed by our staff and very thorough, and we need to acknowledge that. And I think even the residents last week acknowledged that very generously up on site. In regards to DCP, it is something that we vary regularly based on the circumstances of the DA that we're dealing with. So it is probably a little bit incorrect if we assume that the DCP has to be followed religiously because we do regularly vary it. In terms of the guidelines that have been mentioned tonight, just want to make it quite clear that that was a council decision not to include it in the DCP as a result of at the time some legal advice, and it was a decision of the council at the time, and certainly not the decision of staff alone at that period of time, as has been alluded to. It was a council decision, be it right or wrong. It was a council decision because of the legal advice, as I said, and also the advice was to wait until the DCP or LEP were done in concert and done thoroughly. Again, right or wrong, that's a moot point, but that's how we got to that decision. Like Councillor Smith, I'm a little bit disappointed in some of the emails that have come through that have indicated that there's a little bit of untoward attitude from councillors or council staff, which I reject completely as being absolute nonsense. And I was a little bit intrigued, having been sat in this place for 25 years, 15 years up there, and done a number of training courses for other councils around councillors, that I was given a copy of the guidelines for councillors, and having read the Act as well, it's pretty clear that councillors have a very large number of responsibilities which we have to deal with. And talking to the community, of course, is but one and an important one. So I think, as Councillor Smith alluded to, talking to the community is the entire community, the Cowra Shire community, whether you're at Woodstock or Wangara or Goolagong or Moyane, Tarragala, or wherever. We need to talk to the community, and whatever decision we need to talk to the community and listen to what we're told. It doesn't necessarily translate that we have to do what any group of the community tell us if we think it's not in the best interest of the Shire, be that right or wrong. And we need to look at the consequences of decisions across the landscape and what implications it will have for all our ratepayers. And we also need to look at what precedents that we can potentially create around community title or other issues. So I think we need to be quite cautious, councillors, but if this is the direction the council wants to go, it's consistent with what the council did last time around. So if that's the way council goes, I'm not going to be stamping my feet and screaming from the rooftop, because it's a decision of the majority, and I just encourage you to make a decision according to your conscience, not and what's in the best interest of the entire Shire, but also recognising and appreciating the work that's gone into it by council staff and the work that they've done to get to this particular point.
Thank you, Councillor West. Is there a speaker for the motion? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support the motion because all the dot points that Councillor Watt made, I feel are appropriate to this DA, even given the amount of work that our staff have put into to get it to this stage. The variation today of asking for a more detailed costing, it may satisfy our mind that he either cannot build it for that, or if he is going to build it for that, the outcome mightn't be brilliant. But in whatever case, there's no methodology there that if we're not happy with the price, the development doesn't go ahead. So if we were to support that, to say we're going to get a better outcome, it wouldn't work. And I think a part of rejecting it is these are professional developers, and they're working with DAs all the time, with DCPs, LEPs. But it's interesting that this was lodged in February last year, and it's only become able to be reported to us with a condition of to be approved after all that debate. So they put in something that wasn't up to standard to start with, and I just wonder how many more things that will come out in the development if it does go ahead. We're advised that the proposal largely complies with Section 4.5 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. Is that to me questions, is it 51% or 85% or whatever? And Councillor Smith's, Councillor Judy Smith's comment about the need to provide a management plan, she questions whether that has to be done. On page 65 of our DCP, it says that when the subdivision plan is lodged, it has to have a management plan with it. And part 2 of what we are opposing here today, with the motion that's been put forward, does not have any management plan with it, or it doesn't address anywhere that a management plan will be prepared. And the developer indicated to me, as been said before, it's not his responsibility, it's the people that buy the lots. Now the management plan hinges around water and sewerage, possibly electricity, and he looks after the community land. So there's quite a bit involved in it, and the plans I've seen in places that they usually fall over because none of the residents want to be the leader to operate it, which brings me back to the community title in this situation. I think it's being used as a way forward for his development, but usually community titles are developed by or a community group trying to help their people, a church group trying to help disadvantaged people, or a retirement group trying to have residences for older people. But here, this is just to create 7 titles that can be sold. The applicant has showed no interest in offering how it's going to be operated after it's been completed, which I find it falls over, and we shouldn't give permission for a community title to be used in this situation. I support what's been said about the water and sewerage connections. They got to be done directly to the building. So it looks like this case, you'll have one water connection, so you probably only get one access fee each year. And so we miss out on 6 access fees, and that'd probably be the same with the sewerage. It's good that residents can get cheaper fees if it's possible, but then also they've got to be remembered that these fees are what maintains the future operation of this council, and he hasn't provided exactly who he's trying to help. He mentioned affordable housing and he's mentioned older people, but it's not clear that's exactly what it's going to do.
Excuse me, Councillor Wright. I hate to interrupt, but we do have another meeting at 6 o'clock. So if you'd like to finish up so we can have a right reply.
The final comment is, with the cut and fill, it's indicated some of the retaining walls will be over 1 metre high. Under our DCP, you can only cut and fill to 1 metre. You can only cut 1 metre deep. So there's something not right there. And I ask my colleagues to refuse this, to support this motion, to refuse the development, and then we will work out a way forward how we're going to support. Like, we've got enough information here now to support our case, I feel.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Watt, would you like right of reply?
Actually, can I please speak before that?
Make it quick, if
Yeah,
you wouldn't
sure.
mind.
I only need 90 seconds.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I support Councillor Watt's refusal of the DA, the significant research that she's conducted in this matter, leading to a detailed analysis of the current DA's shortcomings and inconsistency with the Cowra DCP. I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this, especially the staff, the applicant, and those in the chamber tonight, or those who have written letters to us. The piece here that I want to talk about that for me is that Karen Reid mentioned it here about hearing us and being an advocate for the community. Since I have become a councillor, we've had 37 DAs put in front of us in 2022, 25 this year. We've had 5 massive DAs. We've had the 80 lot subdivision, which we had 13 submissions.
of complaint against it. We've had the petrol station in Lachlan Street, we had one objection to it. Glenella Quarry modification had one submission against it. Bunnings redevelopment had one submission against us. The Baroola Mines modification had 4 objectors against it too. This is the first applicant DA that I have seen that has had significant objections to it. 22 in the first round, 17 in the second. I'm here to represent the community. I'm here to listen to the community, and on the basis of that, I support the refusal. I'd also like to add that the landscape plan, for me, everybody talks about the view from this estate and how prestige the view is. If you look at the landscape plan, which is page 65 of our development application, you will see that they have 5 varieties or 38 trees that grow over 6 metres in height. Now, and they've got another 95 varieties at 2.5 metres. I don't know about you, but that certainly would block out the view from such a prestigious area, also known as the jewel in Cowra's crown. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Delbo. Councillor Smith, you're the only one who hasn't spoken. Would you like to? Okay, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for your thoughts. A few responses very quickly. Streetscape for the applications presented to us is defined in our DCP. The purpose of our DCP is to provide residents and future residents to know what the rules are in which they have to play. I agree with Councillor Kiss that things like this are very difficult to genuinely understand. However, while we may have our ability for subjective decisions on the style of a footpath or the aesthetic nature, the definition of a streetscape is quite clear in our DCP, be that about the width of the road, the space for car parking, or the setback. I would ask councillors to genuinely consider, and if they have not reviewed the DCP, I would ask them to review them beforehand, before they make important decisions like this. But this application is not consistent with the front setback controls. If there were not 2 dwellings within 40 metres of this proposed house, this proposed application, the setback would be 6 metres. However, there is not. Therefore, scenario 1, which is the only scenario in our DCP which articulates the front setback as 6 metres, is not applicable. As Councillor Wright articulated, we are deciding today whether we will approve the community title, which in part will create the subdivision of this land. The management plan is required to be provided when the subdivision is created, and that is what we're being asked to do today. I will not make decisions in this chamber based on threats, either by our community, by developers, or by other councillors. We should not make decisions here based on someone's threat to us, the implication that they have more money than us, or that we will drain the resources of council. We should make our decisions based on reviewing the policies of council and considering the community interest in this space. Being short for time, I'll end on this point. Variations to our DCP are subjectively approved by council, which is why they are presented to us as the elected councillors rather than decided by staff. If these were to be decided solely on the rules, there would be no variations allowed. No one would be allowed a pool, not where it is allowed in the DCP, a garage, a setback that is different. Of course, we all would accept that planning across the world is a mess. There are often inconsistencies and variations, particularly in cities, as we know, like Sydney or Melbourne, where there was lots of development before significant rules were put in place. One of our important roles is to make these subjective decisions as required and consider the future of the area. We do not presume that there is never a reason for change to the DCP or a slight variation. However, this is a greenfield development. This is not the time for varying our DCP. This subdivision is not completed. We have on our books stage 2, which we have not even started. People in this chamber bought these lots only a matter of years ago, and it is our duty to take in complete faith what they purchased the land on understanding for, and to hold up our DCP, which was only adopted in 2021, to this land. As I have articulated in this motion, there are a number of ways in which this application is not consistent with our DCP, and there are more that I have not included in this application. Councillors, please consider this motion in front of you. Please consider the requests of our community, and please consider the future of the Valley View estate that we'd like to create. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Now, I put the motion that Councillor Watt moved before. We won't read it out, it was very long. So everyone needs to put their hands up to vote for this. So I put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for coming, and that I'll close the meeting. Thank you.